You're going to walk away from this episode knowing how to develop a numbers forecast and how to have a better perspective on understanding your cash flow. Stay tuned for industry expert Jessica Blasingame on the Fitness Business Podcast. Have you seen the behind the mic, raw, uncut footage of my interviews with our guests? If the answer is no, then you have to stop what you're doing and follow along on our Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn page. Come on, you're missing all the fun. All right, FBP family, we are talking about making money in your business. Join me, Dory Nugent, for the next 30 minutes, along with the owner of Beam Financial, Jessica Blasingame. Jessica is here today to teach us about the financial tools needed to help you plan for the future. We will hear from Jessica in just a few short minutes. First, a quick message from Discover Strength as we thank them for supporting our show.
At Discover Strength Franchising, we know you want to own a thriving fitness business. We believe you should be able to do work that you are passionate about while also making a great living. Imagine owning a distinguished fitness business backed by a market-tested business model where efficient 30-minute strength workouts are provided to your clients by expert, educated personal trainers. Here's how to get started. Head to discoverstrengthfranchise.com and fill out the contact form. Set up a pre-qualification call with our franchise team. Join us for a mutual discovery day. So head to discoverstrengthfranchise.com so you can start falling in love with your work again.
Thank you, Luke, and the team at Discover Strength. Now listen, everybody, they are definitely worth checking out. So head on over to www.discoverstrengthfranchise.com.
Get your pen ready now for Keep Me's Fit Bizpiration.
What are your 3 tips for developing a financial roadmap for your business?
Yeah. So the first tip is to start with your actuals. So run a report, profit and loss report, and make sure you're looking at what's actually happening financially in your business. That's a good starting place for your forecast. The second tip is then you want to start thinking through what are the changes that are coming up for your business. And you want to think very creatively. Sometimes you need to think skeptically, right? What are some things that could happen in my business coming up? And that's everything. That's your income. So how can I offer new, services? How can I drive up my income? How can I lower my costs? Are there ways I can be strategic with that? Are there any big expenditures coming down the pipeline that I haven't considered? New expenses that are going to pop up? So really just start thinking about all of these scenarios that'll affect your business, and you're going to plug those into your forecast. And the last tip is just know that this forecast is going to change, and that is totally fine. Keep tweaking it. You can compare it to your actual numbers each month and then make adjustments. You'll also make adjustments as just life changes, right? So keep working with your forecast and making it better the more information you get.
Ryan Deluca, co-founder of Black Box VR Fitness, is next week's industry expert. Ryan talks about his mission to disrupt the fitness industry by creating innovative products and experiences that create lasting change in people's lives. After this week's episode, I'll introduce you to Ryan Deluca, and you'll hear why his episode topic is groundbreaking.
Health Club leaders, you work hard to ensure your members have the very best fitness experience, right? You need personal trainers who do the same. Become a preferred partner with ISSA, and we'll deliver the best trainers in the industry to your club in a matter of days, fully certified and ready to work. And we'll help you keep those trainers by offering them exclusive discounted pricing on ISSA certifications. Because when your trainers stay, so do your valued members. Becoming a preferred partner with ISSA is absolutely free. Click above or visit issaonline.com/fitbiz to get trainers now.
It is time to get this show rolling, so please welcome Jessica Blasingame. It is time for another episode of the Fitness Business Podcast. I'm your guest, Dory Nugent, and today we have Jessica Blasingame with us. She is not only the founder, but she's also the CEO of Beam Financial Group. Jessica, welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
We are so excited to have you here because you're going to talk about tips to owning a profitable personal training business. And of course, that's the business that we are in. So I'm sure you're going to bring lots of good nuggets to today's episode.
Yes, I will.
All right. So Jessica, before we get started with your questions, just give us a little bit of a background about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a CPA. I'm a QuickBooks expert, and I work with clients to help them get their books set up, help them to tweak their financial processes, and help them to look to the future and kind of plan for the future. So I'm a small business coach as well.
All right. So you don't necessarily work in the gym every day, but you work within the business and the industry.
That's right. But I was a yoga teacher, so I understand the business well.
Oh, but I heard the word was. You're no longer a yoga
I'm not currently teaching, but I'll probably be going back to it after the pandemic settles down a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. We need you.
Thank you.
The industry needs to have to make sure you get back there. All right. Well, let's talk about making money because everybody wants to make money. So I would love for you to just start off by defining cash flow in a business.
Yeah. So cash flow in a business, there's a lot of ways to look at that, of course. And the way I like to look at it is by developing a forecast for a business. And that is just basically a look at the future. It's a plan for the future with numbers behind it. So, when we do a forecast, we look at how cash flow will be positively and negatively affected, and we put it into a plan. So, most people know how cash flow is positive, and that's income, right? So we're always concerned about income, but we can start to look at it when we're creating our forecast in a creative way, right? We want to look at maybe if we can introduce new offerings, new service lines. And I think a lot of fitness businesses during the pandemic had to get creative there, right? Maybe they were doing digital offerings, or maybe they had certain kinds of workshops that were online, or maybe there were certain ways they were driving people into the gym. So that's one thing that we think about with cash flow, of course, is how can we increase people to come and buy our service? And also, how can we maybe lower our expenses? And that would be another way to kind of positively impact cash flow. Are there ways that we can cut our expenses down? Sometimes there aren't. Sometimes we're operating pretty lean, but sometimes we can be creative. We can see, can we switch to a different vendor? Maybe have somebody coming in and cleaning the gym every day. Can we, cut costs there? Or can we look at all our expenses and see if there's areas we can cut back, like subscriptions is another one. Business owners have tons and tons of online subscriptions, and sometimes you're not using them. So that's a good place to sort of look and see, can I cut back my expenses there? So the whole exercise really in looking at cash flow is to understand what's going on first, what is actually happening in your business, and then to kind of create this plan for the future and to put intention behind it. So even if your forecast isn't perfect and, it changes a lot, you're at least just putting the thought behind all of these things, right? So you're putting it out on paper, and you can kind of operate and change it, but at least you have like some sort of framework to work within. So
it being in your business and the expert, when the pandemic hit, how many businesses did you see that just had no idea about their cash flow, whether it was where it was coming in and going out from?
I saw it a lot. And a lot of businesses did, because they didn't understand their cash flow, they didn't have the right savings in place. And, they could have done an exercise to see, like, here's what our expenses usually are per month. Let's make sure we have 3 months worth set aside in a reserve, or at least be working towards a savings, so that if for some reason we stop having income, which no one expected during the pandemic, a lot of these businesses stopped having income almost completely, and they couldn't cover their costs. A lot of the costs were fixed. So they were going out of business. And we saw that. I mean, everyone saw that, whether it was a fitness business or just across the board, restaurants and things like that. So, when you do a forecast, it's important to see, you get that number. Like, I can see my average expense per month, and now I can save for it, and make sure I'm covered. It gives you some security.
I think it's so amazing that when the pandemic hit, how many businesses, and not necessarily just in the fitness industry, but how many businesses in general saw how frivolous they were spending. Cash flow was good, business was good. And then, like you said, it hit overnight. And it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe we were spending money on this and that. And, time to housekeep and tidy things up a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. It forced businesses to be more prudent. You're exactly right.
Yeah. Great way to put it. Very nice. So why is cash flow important in a business? I'd love for you to tell our listeners.
Yeah. Well, it's important, obviously, that you have a healthy profit. That's what I think everyone that's in business is concerned about. So you want to be looking at the full picture. And I think a lot of times businesses sort of fall into this comfort zone where it's like you said, before the pandemic, like all this money's coming in, you feel the money coming in, you see it in your bank account. So you feel pretty comfortable. You're like, I'm covering my expenses. I can see that I have a positive balance. I don't really need to be in touch with this so much. I'll just keep doing it. I'll keep earning my income and I'll be good. But what that doesn't plan for is any sort of risks that come along that you might be able to mitigate if you were planning. And it also doesn't plan for some opportunities that you could take advantage of if you were more in touch with your financial picture. And further, if you're doing some planning, you can take advantage of more tax saving strategies. So that's one big reason we do financial forecasts for our clients is they can plan their taxes a lot more strategically so they can get pay less tax. That's another thing everybody wants to do, right? Give less money to the IRS. So if you have sort of a better picture of what your profit's going to be like over the next year, you can start implementing some of these strategies. So those are kind of some important reasons to understand your cash flow in a business.
Okay, good point there. So what role should cash flow actually play in your business decision making?
Yeah. So I think this is good to talk through kind of an example. We can do that with the fitness business. So if you're starting to put together your forecast, first of all, you're looking at the past, right? So that's always where we start with the forecast. We look at what the numbers have been over the past year. So we have a starting place. So you can see kind of how the income's been growing or declining. You can see what the expense structure has been like. So we start with that, and then we start making changes, assumptions for the future, right? Like maybe the business owner tells me they want to try to buy their own building. They're tired of renting, or they want to buy some of their equipment they're using instead of renting it, or they want to launch some new products or services. Maybe they're going to have nutrition workshops in the gym now. Like, what does that look like? So if we start doing this planning around cash flow, we can plug these things in and see what the result is, right? So it gives you this sort of comfortable framework to operate within. So if you're like, okay, I'm going to do these nutrition workshops and I'm going to have some digital classes that I offer too, and these are 2 new service lines, plug in the assumptions like, okay, we're going to have 1 workshop, we're going to book 10 people in it, we're going to charge $50 each. So you can kind of plug in these numbers and see, okay, that increases our revenue each month by 5%. That's awesome. Okay, well, let's think through, are there any expenses associated with this? Well, we're going to bring in a nutritionist, so we have to pay that person. Maybe we need to get a lawyer to review some contracts as we set this program up or whatever. So you're thinking through some of the expenses that might come along with that increase in revenue. And then you can see, okay, how does it affect your overall profit? Well, our expenses are so high for this workshop that it's not really bringing in that much more revenue. So either I'm going to raise my prices on that workshop or I'm not going to do it at all. So you can kind of be like talking through some of these decisions with something to back you up, right? Instead of just saying, hey, let's try this nutrition workshop and see what happens. And then you don't really know what the result of it is. So it's really just to give you more clarity as you make big decisions for your business. You want to buy like a big piece of equipment. Maybe you're going to buy a video camera so you can do digital workshops. When's a good time to buy that camera? Let's look at our cash flow. Let's understand, in the new year, we have a lot more revenue, right? Everybody's back in the gym. So this would be a good time for us to buy it. It's not going to affect our bottom line that much. So things like that, or can we bring on new employees? That would be another thing. You can plug in the costs associated with those employees and see if you can afford to do that. So,
well, yeah. Interesting. Not only are you a founder and a CEO, but you're also a mind reader. Because I was going to ask you, so many businesses had to delete when the pandemic hit. And now for many businesses, not all, but many businesses are starting to feel the ball rolling again.
Yes.
What advice would you give them on, when does a business know that it's okay maybe to add some things back in?
Yeah. So that's where, again, I'll go back to the forecast. Like if you can create that and look at the picture, even just do a year, you could even do a quarter. I mean, I'm down for anything, just to start getting you thinking about it. But you can see kind of how your income is going, what your trends and seasonality are and things like that. You can see how healthy it is. And you can see when it would be a good point for you to, like say, bring on a couple more employees. And again, the software I use when we're creating a forecast, it has this option where you can plug something in. Like you could say, I want to hire one employee. You can plug it in. You can even turn it off. So you can see how it impacts your profit immediately. You just go beep, click a button, it turns on, it goes into the forecast. And then you can see like, oh, whoa, I can't afford that. If I bring on this new employee, I'm going to be going into the negative with my profit in 2 months. Don't want to do that right now. I'll wait, So again, you're starting with the picture of what your finances are now, and then you're tweaking it just based on plans or estimates what you think is going to happen in the future. So I think it's pretty cool. I think when business owners start working with it, they're kind of like, this is fun. I can plug in more revenue. I can see if it's possible for me to launch this thing that I want to launch. So, it's a nice tool.
All right. So speaking of fun, at least for CPAs, accountants, and numbers people,
Yeah.
let's talk budgets versus financial roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
Are they the same?
They're a little different. A budget is basically a picture for a year, and it's usually pretty stagnant. So it's like you come up with your budget around, in December for the next year. It's sort of this plan for your expenses that you're supposed to stick to, and you can measure against it, right? So you have your actuals come in and you'll measure against what you budgeted. So it's a useful exercise, but I like the forecast even more because it's a little more strategic. It's not stagnant. And I think that's a misconception. A lot of business owners don't want to do a forecast because they think my business is going to change so dramatically. I don't even want to put it on paper. But it is this framework that you can keep tweaking. And every month you can change it. As you get new information in, you can change it. Like maybe you said you were going to have 10 new clients and you actually had 5. So maybe your estimate was unrealistic. So you're going to scale that back. So you're constantly letting it change. And you can go out more than the year with a forecast. You could go 3 years if you wanted to, or more. So the forecast is a little more of an interesting tool, I think, than a budget. But a budget is important.
Yeah, it sounds like the forecast is a little bit more long-term.
Yes, that's right.
You mentioned there in that answer about the business or businesses being so fluid right now. So is there any value in still doing these items because the business is so fluid?
Yeah, I think it's even an even better time to do it when the business is fluid because pandemic is a perfect example. Everything is so up in the air. There's so many changes happening at once. We have inflation coming in and we have labor shortages, which I'm sure fitness business owners are dealing with. And then you have an increase in rates because of the labor shortage. So you have so many things you have to decide on at once, so many pieces moving. If you have a forecast, at least you can plug in all of those moving pieces. You can say, okay, I think we're going to end up paying people $5 an hour more. Let's plug in what that looks like. Let's plug in that we're going to have to lower our prices a little bit because we're really trying to drive people back into the gym, or these are just examples, but let's plug in that we're going to have to buy some video equipment so we can get that going. So you're putting in all of those pieces of information at the same time and then seeing what the results are. So instead of operating in this void where you're like, okay, let's try all these things and see what sticks, and we don't really know what's driving anything, let's put it into a model and then let's see what happens. So then we can kind of start to understand what's causing our profit to go down or up,
Yeah,
makes sense.
It does make sense. Such important information. We should have had this about 2.5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I mean, that's one reason I got so interested in offering forecasting as a service, because I saw the way businesses were struggling. They didn't feel prepared to handle the pandemic, and it's not anyone's fault. Nobody thought it was going to happen. But we have this opportunity now to get prepared and make sure we're ready to pivot so that we're not going out of business.
So when you were on here last week and we did the quick fire 5 questions, I believe one of your answers when I asked you about a life lesson that you learned with the pandemic was that to have 3 months revenue set aside in your business in case something happens again.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that in case any of our listeners missed your quick fire 5 segment.
Yeah. 3 months worth of your expenses. So if you have an idea of kind of what your monthly expenses are for the business, you want to set aside 3 months worth. And that's just sort of an approximation, just to get you having some reserves. But the idea is that if you weren't earning any income at some point, you had to slow way back, like what happened in the pandemic, you can still survive. Your business can still survive for at least 3 months. And I think with the pandemic, a lot of businesses, they couldn't survive past a month because they didn't have any sort of reserves. And that was the thing I saw, like right when everything closed. I was like, this is so disappointing that these business owners haven't been given the guidance. And it's, again, no one's fault. I just don't think it's talked about a lot. You got to be saving and having a reserve. And I know that's hard because sometimes you're operating on a low margin, but as much as you can, think for that, plan for that. Protect yourself.
Like you said, nobody saw that coming and people were not prepared, but we always try to find the good if there is, we try to find a little bit of a silver lining coming out of COVID. And one of them, I feel just from listening to a lot of our guests, is the fact that, look how much people learned, and going forward, they'll be much smarter decision makers, business owners, even staff, just savvy on technology. It's kind of crazy how much the pandemic taught us.
Yeah, it did. And business owners are resilient. That was one cool thing to watch during the pandemic, is to see how people adapted and pivoted, and so these are just tools to help you to pivot.
Yeah. Well, we love all of your tools that you shared with us today. Thank you so much, Jessica. Really appreciate this is not a topic that I am an expert on. So not that I'm an expert on a lot of topics, but it certainly is one that a lot of our listeners, they want more of. So it's great when we have people like yourself willing to donate their time to come on to our episode and share your knowledge. Thanks everyone for listening today, and a big thank you to Jessica for taking time out of her busy schedule to join us on the Fitness Business Podcast. Jessica would love to entertain any further questions that you might have for her. So please head to the show notes at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com where you can find her contact information. And also, while you're there, subscribe to the show. That way it will be delivered directly to your inbox, as well as the show notes. And again, that can all be done at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. In 30 seconds, Ryan Deluca is up next as our Quick Fire 5 guest.
Did you know that the active ingredient in most disinfecting wipes has well-documented lung, skin, and reproductive health concerns? That active ingredient is called a quaternary ammonium compound, or a quat, not necessarily something you'd want in a health and wellness facility. VaporFresh disinfecting gym wipes avoid all quats and instead use an innovative citric acid chemistry to disinfect. Even with this greener chemistry, VaporFresh is still EPA registered to disinfect 99.9% of surfaces. VaporFresh is trusted by some of the most premier gyms and college rec centers nationwide. With 1,200 wipes per roll and 4 rolls per case, they offer an unbeatable value per wipe. Order today at vaporfresh.com or Amazon.
Quickfire 5.
Please welcome Ryan Deluca to the Quickfire 5. I'd like to introduce Ryan Deluca as our guest today for Quickfire 5. Ryan is the co-founder of Black Box VR, which was established in 2016. Ryan, it's taken this long to get you on the Quickfire 5.
Thank you very much for having me. Very excited to be here.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So we fast forward to 2022. You're finally a guest on the podcast. I'm so glad to have you here. You're going to talk next week about virtual reality. But before that, I have a couple fun questions. Can't wait to hear your answer. So let's get started with question number 1. What is a life lesson that the pandemic has taught you?
Well, I think the number one life lesson that we all had to learn is that the future is unpredictable. Like, we like to believe that things are going to happen like they've always happened. We know there's a certain amount of change that's going to happen, but these kind of sudden black swan events, you never know when it can happen, and just being prepared for that and understanding what's important and what's not.
All right. Very nice answer. I like that. All right. Ready for number 2?
Let's do it.
If you could play a character in any movie, what character would it be?
Well, it's obviously Iron Man. Like, Iron Man has got to be the entrepreneur's favorite superhero, right? Like, he can really actually create these things you like to kind of believe and become a superhero, like using his mind and creating companies and products. And so I think Iron Man. Plus, my daughter really likes Iron Man, so it gives me extra points.
Okay. Well, yep. Brownie points works. All right. Number 3, please complete this statement. Sunday morning, you can find me.
Spending time with my new 4-month-old daughter. She keeps me pretty busy, but I know the good answer is, reading books. I like to relax on Sundays, of course, and going to church. I try to get a lot of good book reading done in that time. I'm a big book reader, but otherwise it's spending time with family and probably fitting in a few games of Rocket League, my favorite video game.
All right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned the word books and that you like to read, because my next question is all about books. Could you please give one book recommendation for all of our FBP family out there listening?
Sure. Yeah. Big book reader. It's made my life so much better. And I'd say it's a very popular one, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's kind of a basic answer in a way, and I'd like to come up with something more complicated, but the truth is, like, when it comes to making your life better, your business better, your family better, like, understand these basic principles of how to relate to other people and how to understand how you relate to yourself is so important. So I recommend that. Once a year, I try to read How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, we do get that book a couple times throughout the year. And it's funny that not only do we get it a couple times, but everybody that recommends it always says it's a book that you have to kind of constantly keep in your rotation. So it's ironic that you say the same exact thing.
For sure.
All right. Now I'm going to hand the mic over to you for the next 30 seconds. Okay. You're going to pitch to all of our family again why they should come back next week to hear your episode. Take it away, Ryan.
Well, first, I'd like to say, did you know that Facebook, who's now named as Meta after Metaverse, purchased a fitness company for $400 million last year? It's something that the fitness industry is not really talking about, and it is a virtual reality fitness app. It's this new thing that's coming that is becoming very popular. People are buying these Quest devices, and there's a whole new world of virtual reality out there where you can actually immerse yourself in an entire different world. You have a trainer, you can do workouts, you can play games. This is going to completely change the fitness industry over the next couple of years. There's billions of dollars going in from the biggest tech companies in the world, like Apple coming out with their headset soon, Facebook, Google, and more. And it's really going to have a big impact on the fitness industry.
All right, everybody, tune in next week. You're going to learn all about virtual reality from the co-founder of Black Box VR. Next week's show is sure to give you a glimpse into the future. So head to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, subscribe to the show, and that episode will be delivered directly to your inbox. Hey, before you go, I have a couple of thank yous that I want to shout out here. Thank you to our founding partner, Active Management, our partners, Keep Me, MyZone, Discover Strength, ISSA, and Hapana, as well as our advertisers, Rex Roundtables, MX Metrics, and Vapor Fresh. We believe what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but woven into the lives of others.